Ooh baby, finally some SNES games on Switch. And not just any games, but some of the best out there. I already put some good hours in Super Mario World, Star Fox and Demon's Crest. And I still have a lot more on my backlog to complete from this list. But you know how it is, there is always room for more. And Nintendo confirmed what we were already expecting. More games are on their way. Just not monthly anymore, as they were with the NES library. And while they were slowly beginning to scrape the bottom of the barrel with the NES games, the SNES still has a list of amazing games that are not included yet. So for you today, I present the top 5 SNES games that should come to the Nintendo Switch's library. These are just my picks and I know that there is a lot to choose from. So be sure to leave your favorite SNES games in the comments that are not included yet and that you want to see. Are we ready? Let's begin. This poor European never got the chance to play this amazing piece of work as a kid. Super Mario RPG Legend of the 7 Stars. But I'm happy that I got to play it later in life. And I wouldn't mind playing it again. If you're wondering why so many people are voting for some wooden puppet guy called Gino to get in Smash, then you should really try this game. Because Gino became so popular thanks to Super Mario RPG. Developed by Square at the time and published by Nintendo, Super Mario RPG would be the first game in the series with RPG elements for the Mario franchise. Later, a lot more games would take inspiration from this, like Mario and Luigi's Superstar Saga and Partners in Time. As mentioned, the game was never released in PAL regions, so not everyone got to play it. But in places where it did get released, like North America and Japan, it was incredibly popular, and still a fan favorite to this day. Also one of the reasons why so many people keep rooting for Gino in Smash, despite his limited appearances in video game history. Together with Mario and 4 other playable characters, it's up to you to retrieve the 7 star pieces of the Star Rod from Smitty, an evil robot-like blacksmith type of guy. A lot of adventures are to be had, and a lot of interesting characters are to be found. Some that you were already familiar with from the Mario franchise, and other ones that are entirely new to the series. To get this game on Switch would be a massive win, but seeing as the game was also included on the SNES Classic, it will probably just be a matter of time. The Legend of the Mystical Ninja, or as I like to call it, the video game cover with the most crazy eyes. If you did not get the chance to play this game, then you really should. If it will be ported to the Switch, of course. It's a side-on action platformer with some RPG elements. The whole game can be played with 2 players, as player 1 will be Kid Ying, also called Gumon in Japanese, and player 2 will be Dr. Yang. If you like to beat up a whole lot of stuff while collecting things, then this game is for you. The game really stands out by its Eastern atmosphere, which is all present in the art style, characters and amazing soundtrack. There were more Gumon games released in Japan, but this was the very first entry to make its way to the West. Multiple sequels were released after that. Well, there isn't much else to say about Legend of the Mystical Ninja. Did it change the industry? No. Is the story deep and life-changing? No, but the game is fun. Really fun. Alone or with one of your friends. It's funny, ridiculous and beautiful at the same time. A must-have for the SNES. Let's talk about the hero that had a lot of potential but got lost in video game history. Earthworm Jim. Or as small brain child Xpref used to call him, Earthworm Jim. And I know it wasn't the SNES exclusive at the time, but this game will also be released for the Sega Genesis Mini. So let's cut him some slack so he can also appear on the SNES library. As I was saying, lost in video game history. I think Earthworm Jim could have been one of the great video game icons. But because of cancelled games, delayed projects and just a lack of Jim in recent years made them fall into obscurity. There is a new game on the way for the Intellivision Amico. That's something, I guess. I would rather see a cross-platform game, but hey, you can't win them all. Earthworm Jim, the game named after its protagonist, would become the first in the series. And a very good one. Electric Gaming Monthly would crown it the best game on the Sega Genesis. And Nintendo Power would vote it as the 114th best game on the SNES. For a console with 1758 games, that's not too shabby. Jim had the head of a worm but the body of a handsome muscular man. Well, it wasn't actually his body, it was a suit that he found. And all the enemies in the game are trying to get the suit back from you. It's your job to avoid and kill them and rescue Princess What's-Her-Name at the same time. The game is a 2D side-scrolling platformer with a lot of weird enemies and interesting locations. A game that you must have played at least once. So let's not make this worm man fall into obscurity even more and get him into the Nintendo Switch to play his adventure once again. This one is a no-brainer, of course. With so many people asking for a localization of Mother 3, it would also be nice to return to its predecessor in Earthbound. Once again, it was released for the SNES Mini, so for me the hope is there that it will eventually come to Nintendo Switch as well. But I also know how protective Nintendo is about this franchise, so you never know. Earthbound is an RPG game in which you play as an ass, which you probably know from Super Smash Bros. Together with his friends Pooh, Paula and Jeff, you go on some crazy adventures to save the world from Gygus, who transformed the world in his hatred to make all things evil. With Mystical Ninja I said the plot wasn't important, but with this game it most certainly is. The story goes really deep, is interesting and revolves around some issues that can be pretty heavy. The game never received a European release, and sales in North America didn't perform too well. They had a whole weird advertising campaign, including scratch and sniff cards that would smell like farts.
変なゲームなのか、感動の RPG なのか。
マザー1、2。女性さん。
Digital Trend would call this whole campaign bizarre, and it would rely too much on fart jokes. That's one of the reasons why Earthbound did not get off the ground in North America. But as you can imagine, many reviewers would come back to the game in later years and change their opinion on the matter. At the time, people were looking for more realistic graphics, but this game was looked over because of its toony looks. But behind its colorful appearance there is a very dark story with a lot of great humor. Once again, a must-play if you're a Nintendo fan. The game that deserves it the most to come to Nintendo Switch. Or should I rather say 3 games, as they all deserve to get a place in the spotlight. The Donkey Kong Country SNES trilogy. They are amazing, they are iconic, and most importantly, they are incredibly fun to play. Developed by Rare, Donkey Kong Country gave us many important firsts for the Donkey Kong series. It would be Donkey Kong's first step towards his new look. It gave us Diddy Kong, Dixie Kong, King K. Rool and so much more. The original would become the 3rd best-selling SNES game of all time, and would keep the interest in the SNES high even when the competitors Sony's PlayStation and Sega Saturn released. An important part of video game history and one that many people won't forget. This platformer game would put new characters in the spotlight with every entry. Donkey and Diddy were stars of the original, Diddy and Dixie would take the lead for the sequel Diddy Kong's Quest, and Dixie and Kiddy would finally star in the 3rd entry, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. There are many things that make these games great. The movement feels really good, the level design is unique, and the soundtrack is at an all-time best, with many of its tracks still being included in Super Smash. Why they didn't include these games at launch on the SNES library is a big question for me, but I know they will come eventually, and it's going to be amazing. It would be really crazy of Nintendo if they didn't include these beautiful pieces of video game art. So it's just a matter of time. But that's just the opinion of one guy on the internet. So now, my question for you is, if you could pick the SNES games that should come to Nintendo Switch, then which one should it be? Some of those that I mentioned, or do you have a favorite that isn't on the list? Let me know in the comments as I'm really curious what those might be. I might even do a second part of more SNES games that should be included on the Switch. So I may take inspiration from your answers. If you are curious about that or you just want to see more cool Nintendo content, then click that subscribe button and the notification bell to be the first to know when that episode comes out. Thank you very much!